Welcome back. I am John P. Today we are going to be having a discussion about whether or not luxury watches can be affordable. Now, I don't mean for this watch to be triggering in any way, and in fact, I really do enjoy many affordable watches, including a Seiko watch that I have here. It has actually climbed up in value since I originally acquired it. This is a collaboration with Rowing Blazers, but keep in mind, I do have my Seiko hat close by. I have really learned to love and enjoy Seiko and so many other very cool and affordable watches. But I'm asked this question all the time on my Instagram, The Real John P, and even at DelReyWatch.com. We've kind of dabbled in having different affordable options, affordable being relative though, right? Keep in mind, what is affordable to some is not affordable to others, and that's what makes watches so cool, right? And interesting is that there are so many ways to get involved in different places that you can collect different things regardless of where you want to be in terms of the affordability and the pricing on this watch. And so I would like to share, because once again, I'm asked this question quite often, what I think about what comes with watches at certain price points. Now, before I do that, please do not forget to check out DelReyWatch.com, of course, SinclairStraps.com, where we have premium leather watch straps from the same manufacturers that make them for your favorite watch brands, and also my Instagram, The Real John P. So these affordable watches. Now, I think that it's fair for us to start off at the $500 and under range, right? I think that I'll share with you this little story. We have a service center at Del Rey Watch, right? We have Hans, we have other watchmakers we've used. Peter, he's really great. He's now building his own watch, his own movement. Phenomenal guy as well. I love them both. And we receive inquiries all the time from people that buy Seiko watches and expect the chapter rings to align 100% perfectly on the Seiko diving watches. And so often we receive the same question. Can you align this? Can you change things? And sometimes, there are some tips and tricks. You can find Seiko specialists out there that'll do this, but oftentimes you're moving things on the dial, or maybe the bezel's a little bit off, and it becomes a tricky endeavor. Now, if you're a Seiko collector and you've done this, please leave this in the comments below and help out your fellow collectors. I don't mind a little bit of variance when it comes to these watches, because that's the thing to keep in mind is when we're talking about watches, generally at this price point, there's going to be some give and take. One give is going to be they are affordable. So it's great in that it's affordable. It does not come at a huge price tag, but in exchange, we have to consider that there's not going to be, upwards of 1,000 hours placed on the production of that one watch, because if you think about it, it would mean someone is working somewhere in the world for pennies. And I don't know that that's even reasonable in literally any part of the world in this day and age. And if it was, would you really want a watch that was produced under those conditions? I know personally, I really wouldn't. It means someone is getting so grossly underpaid. It just wouldn't be ethical to accept that. So you have to consider that when it translates down to the labor of someone producing these things, they're either cost cutting or they're using machines and manufacturers. And if it's not someone putting that quality control check there, it's gonna sometimes have these issues. Now, luckily, brands like Seiko have been doing an amazing job improving the quality and pushing it as far as they possibly can. I don't notice anything really wrong with this particular Seiko and other Seikos we've had at Del Rey Watch. But with you guys sometimes out there, I do get comments and questions that this is a common thing. And this is something that I think to keep in mind when we're at that range, up to $500. I think little issues like that can happen, but luckily the brands are willing to take the watch back. They have warranties, and sometimes they say that it's acceptable, and sometimes they don't. It's between you and the manufacturer. I've heard it go both ways, especially with the chapter ring issue on the Seiko watches. But when you start getting upwards into that $1,000 price point, you start getting into higher levels of accuracy with the production value of the watch. Now, keep in mind, at that $1,000 price point, there's a couple of manufacturers, or really factories out there, smaller factories, but factories nonetheless. I think the company is Xantia, and also there is another, there's a couple of other companies that are based in Switzerland when we talk about Swiss luxury watches, and they source the parts in Asia and China that are produced in much different conditions, but they bring them over. They might modify them, polish them a little bit, of course, using machinery and tooling. and then put in a Swiss movement, case it, have a classic, or at least a watch assemble person that is trained in some regard to place the watch together. But at that range, it's also very common, if not almost always happening, that there's not going to be a lot of testing and quality control. Now, of course, they're going to regulate the watch to some degree. I mean, I don't expect that you're going to get COSC. There's a couple COSC certified chronometers out there at that range. I think if you dig around, brands have really been trying to find interesting ways to get our attention as watch collectors. But generally speaking, there's not long observances of the watch. They're not going through much stricter and stringent testing, things like Matos certification that Omega and other brands have started using, led by Omega. But above and beyond the COSC certification for the chronometer standards, things like Matos come at a much higher price point. So when we're talking about that $1,000 range, we do have to consider much more assembly line than we'd like to admit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, right? There's going to be some brand imagery, things along with the watch to help sell it at that price point, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think that $1,000 price point, think the Doxa Sub 200, which I had in my collection. It didn't resonate with me. I had since sold the watch, but that's about $1,000 watch, and I was very impressed with it, and I didn't need the watch to have gone through so many different quality control inspections and things like that and be able to stand so many Gauss of magnetic resistance, because I would never use any of that stuff, and why would I pay for it if I wasn't going to use it, particularly for that watch? Now, I may have different expectations for other watches, but that's something to keep in mind, is that when we start climbing away from affordability and more to inaffordability, there's a lot of extra things that no one really needs, right? And I think that's what's so interesting about watches, is if that one person or many people find something interesting on a watch that they just have to have it, but they don't really need it, right? Think a Revile, think an Alarm, think of something like that. You don't need it for timekeeping. You can get something like a Seiko and have a lot of fun and be happy with it, or many Seikos for that matter. And other brands offer the same. There's a great brand called Orient at the affordability price point, a few $100s, depending on which Orient it is. I think they may even have a premium line today, but it far exceeds most people's expectations that end up with the watch, and they're very happy with it. They love it, and the Orient watches rank very highly on so many people's lists for watches they love and enjoy because of the affordability. And so when someone asks me the question, are watches affordable a luxury? It's a tough question, but I think that if we're realistic with our expectations, it can be a very rewarding experience to mix and match our collection with truly anything that we like and enjoy, whether it's more affordable, more higher end, or whatever you're looking to do with your collection, vintage, modern. And I think placing the term luxury on the watch really is not, at least in my opinion, kind of the way to view it, right? As collectors, I don't know that it's really a great idea for us to say these are luxury items. I mean, they can be in certain regards and instances, but if it's a hobby and a passion and you are fortunate to be able to love and enjoy it, why not? And not kind of ruin it with these, dare I say these flashy terms, but oftentimes it can be like that. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking when it comes to, whether or not our luxury watches, can they be affordable? That's up for you to decide. But I think if we consider what you can get at different price points and also truly just be realistic with what comes at different price points and whether or not you need it or you want it, I think that watch collecting can still be a very rewardable experience. And I don't think we should have to worry about getting priced out of the market too often, because I do get that question a lot, especially on my Instagram, The Real John P. I've had some people that were unfortunately a little bit disappointed. They've been priced out of certain models, but I don't think we should let that hold us back because there are so many cool, interesting models that exist. I talk about it on this channel all the time. I post about it on the internet. We get them in at Delray Watch, and I think regardless of the affordability or the price point, there are very cool watches out there. And I don't think that we should let necessarily just the price point dictate what's going to make us happy when it comes to these watches. What do you guys think? What are your favorite watches? Affordable, not affordable? I would love to hear and see your opinions in the comments below. Please do not forget to check out DelrayWatch.com as well as my Instagram, The Real John P. Thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.